On this Saturday night, a state of emergency, and BC's Interior declared a no-go zone.
Temporary accommodation in the areas I have listed are no longer available for non-essential visits.
Plus confusion as people flee for their lives in the Shushwap. While evacuees from West Kelowna fear for the worst.
We will start counting the number of houses when we stop fighting the fires.
And a brief reprieve in Yellowknife.
That's the city getting covered in rain.
As scattered residents hold their collective breath.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The wildfire crisis is escalating in two different parts of the country tonight. In the Northwest Territories, tens of thousands have fled Yellowknife as fires encroach on the territory's capital. But we begin in British Columbia, where a provincial state of emergency has been declared as the most destructive wildfire season on record gets worse. In the Shuswap region, people in several communities are scrambling to leave as a fire more than 100 square kilometers in size advances, burning out of control. In the Kelowna area, the large McDougall Creek fire exploded in size, encroaching on residents living there. That inferno has already destroyed countless homes and triggered evacuation orders for tens of thousands. And with more fires sparking in the region, firefighters and residents are bracing for the worst.
I think it's become evident that this event is going to leave a long, lasting scar on our community.
This is brutal, folks, for me and thousands of others. And where do you go? There's really no place to go.
30,000 people in BC have been told to leave their homes as 380 wildfires burn across the province. We begin with the crisis unfolding in the Kelowna region. Richard Zussman joins us now with more on the situation there right now. Richard.
There are many people, Colleen, that just don't have a place to go, as you heard. Some stayed here at the local hockey arena last night, and that is why the province is putting in this unprecedented measure. They are banning people from coming to this region to stay in hotels in order to ensure that there is space available for those who may have to evacuate. On top of those who have already had to evacuate, there's 35,000 more on evacuation alert. All of that has people in this community very concerned. The flames, with a mind of their own, rapidly burning their way up the ridge near Kelowna's Magic Estates neighborhood. And in West Kelowna, fire engulfing properties as crews scramble to protect what they can. The extent of the destruction still unknown.
We will start counting the number of houses when we stop fighting the fires that are burning today. As soon as we know, we'll share the information.
Officials say so far there has been no loss of human life, and the province is putting in an extreme measure, banning non-essential hotel and campground stays in the Okanagan and Shuswap areas.
We have an urgent need for more accommodation, given the numbers of people who are being evacuated and who are under advisory. The situation changes very quickly, given the dry conditions.
The wind has been erratic, contributing to the challenge of fighting these fires. But on Saturday, some good news. Calmer winds and better conditions to beat back the flames.
It's a good firefighting day. It's a day where we can roll equipment and crews and have them feel confident in some of the efforts that they're doing out there.
While the weather is cooperating, there are concerns from the RCMP. A few people are not, and that is impacting the ability to fight fires.
There are drones flying through the emergency area. They are affecting our firefighting efforts. If a drone is in the area, you will ground a helicopter. We need that airspace.
Those who aren't following the rules, Colleen, that's pretty minimal compared to everything else we are experiencing here in the area. It's the kindness of people we are seeing more of all day today. People have been pouring into this arena, dropping off food and drinks. Officials say it's even too much, and they're asking people to start donating through sources like the food bank. And we've just felt the wind pick up in the last little bit. That's not great for the firefight, but obviously they're going to be watching very, very closely as we brace for the next few hours here as people are on high alert around these evacuations.
Richard Zussman in Kelowna. Thanks, Richard. To the crisis now unfolding in the Shuswap area. Several communities are now under evacuation order as danger approaches from the lower East Adams Lake fire.
We just got to get through it before it falls. Oh my God.
Thousands of residents are now trying to leave in any way they can as the 100 square kilometer fire rapidly grows. And that's on top of the 32 square kilometer Bush Creek East fire, which is already threatening the region. Elissa Carpenter joins us now from the Shushwap. Elissa, what can you tell us about the evacuation efforts going on there?
I am in Sorrento, and Sorrento is sort of one of the hubs right here. Communities have been evacuated since yesterday to the north, south, and west of here. This afternoon, this went from an evacuation alert to an order. Now, residents here say that things have been a bit confusing. They've been confused about whether or not they had to leave, whether it was an order or not. But the one thing they all agree on is that the community has really come together to support one another. The town of Sorrento eerily quiet on what would normally be a busy Saturday. Businesses, including this fuel station, have closed their doors. Even the post office displaying a sign that says it's closed due to evacuation alerts.
A lot of the firefighters heading over to Scotch Creek are coming out of here and getting gas to get there, but it's still a big question mark. We don't know what to expect or what's going to happen.
Now, this was the scene as residents and visitors lined the road trying to get out. Meanwhile, others along this valley went into active fire zones to help those trapped by the flames and smoke.
We had a bit of a local effort. Everybody went over in boats and pulled people out of there, and search and rescue's over there. There's a lot of firefighters doing a lot of good work there still.
Steve Enns runs this family-owned restaurant and store. His parking lot has been serving as a makeshift muster point for firefighters, search and rescue, and Scotch Creek residents, now only available to be evacuated by boat. The Scotch Creek Fire Hall has burned. Sharon Taves is a resident and small business owner there.
We're just heading out on the boat back to Scotch Creek. Go and see what's going on over there, put out some spot fires if we can help, and see where everyone, just see what the future holds.
Some weren't taking any chances. Evacuee Rod Kelowna left his home Thursday night, now staying at a Vernon hotel.
Some of the pictures that we saw on people's ring cameras and stuff of the fire, all the firemen and police, going from door to door, evacuating people.
Meanwhile, these two visitors from the U.S. have been forced to extend their Canadian holidays. They were scheduled to fly out of Kelowna Airport, closed to commercial planes so fire crews have a place to land and fight fires there.
I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, originally from Canada, came to the States about 27 years ago, and I have family here, so just here to do a little visiting.
The situation throughout the Shuswap region remains fluid, while emergency personnel continue to work around the clock to try and save as many homes and buildings as possible. Now, not only the evacuation situation that remains fluid, but there are also a number of road closures. I want to show you what we're looking at here. This is the Trans-Canada westbound from Sorrento headed to Chase, and the only vehicles getting through right now are any emergency vehicles, anybody fighting the fires. Everybody else is being turned around. That means anybody trying to get to Vancouver, for example, will add about an hour and a half or 2 hours to their trip. They say right now this road needs to be clear just to let those emergency personnel through and to try and get to some of those hot spots and to get to anybody who may still be trapped or who may need rescuing.
Elissa Carpenter in Sorrento, BC. Thanks, Elissa. And these are just some of the many fires that are ravaging parts of the province right now. Among them are numerous blazes near Lytton, burning 2 years after the village was destroyed by wildfires. And the two biggest ones are the Stein Mountain fire to the northwest and the nearly 90 square kilometer Kukupee Creek fire to the south. Evacuation orders and alerts have been issued for the village itself and for the Lytton First Nation. Further east, near the Alberta border, evacuation alerts have also been issued in Invermere with 3 significant fires in the surrounding area. Global News meteorologist Peter Quinlan joins us now. Peter, what can we expect from the weather in the coming days?
Colleen, much more favorable conditions are rolling in over the next few days. The winds easing back, still with that northerly component, though, pushing the fires closer to Kelowna and West Kelowna. But we're not going to see this crossover where the relative humidity falls cooler than the temperature like we saw late in the week. When that happens, we get explosive fire development. But we have concerns for Monday when we could see some more thunderstorms and the possibility of some more lightning that may reignite fires, further spreading crews thin over the coming days. But some much needed moisture may accompany those storms. 10 to 20 plus millimeters would help with the firefight. But after that, we get back into the heat in the Okanagan, upper 20s to low 30s. And when we get the heat coupled with a bit of a breeze, embers like this can reignite. These are seen falling from the sky in Lake Country. The embers are reported as hot spots on this NASA satellite map. And also the fire spots are reported as hot spots. So any of these locations can reignite with just a bit of a breeze and a bit of heat. And sometimes they can stay dormant. So we could be dealing with this potential for quite some time. There are evacuation notices right up to the W.R. Bennett Bridge, and if the fire spreads there, they might need to close down an important corridor between Kelowna and West Kelowna. Strong winds late Saturday in the Yellowknife area, those switching to southwesterly on Sunday, but really there is not many wind directions that are favorable for the community of Yellowknife because the region is surrounded by fires. Thankfully, much needed moisture is on the way as we look ahead to the forecast with those highs into the low 20s at times. By next weekend, we could finally see some soaking rains. Colleen.
That would be good news. Global News meteorologist Peter Quinlan, thank you. Tonight, officials in the Northwest Territories are watching those winds Peter mentioned very closely. With 95% of the city now evacuated, only essential workers and those refusing to leave remain. The city's residents are now turning to Alberta for refuge, a mass exodus with no shortage of challenges. But there was some good news delivered to evacuees today. Global's Jeff Semple is near Enterprise in the Northwest Territories with the latest. Jeff.
Colleen, the roads out of Yellowknife are today very quiet and charred, and in some cases still smoldering and burning, like this spot you can see here behind me. 95% of the population of Yellowknife has now left that community, and now they nervously watch and wait to see what comes next. Daryl Delaney was part of the final convoy leaving Yellowknife. Crossing the border from the Northwest Territories into Alberta is bittersweet.
There was a lot of anxiety, I can tell you, in the town, a lot of panic.
He runs Yellowknife's largest seniors home.
We got one more bus trip left.
And recorded this video of the last group of residents preparing to board a Canadian military plane. To help keep them calm and their spirits up, 3 soldiers even pulled out guitars.
Awesome job.
For an impromptu sing-along.
I commend the military big time. These folks were stellar. I think without them, the logistics of evacuation of 20,000 people would not have happened the way it did.
All week, thousands fled the city, and some left in too much of a hurry. The roadway is littered with car wrecks. By Saturday, the highways leaving Yellowknife were empty. The mayor says nearly all of its 20,000 residents are out.
I was able to sleep a bit last night just knowing that the majority of residents and everybody who wanted to get out got out.
She says most who remain are essential workers. Global News spoke with an ER physician who's staying to keep the hospital running. But officials say around 1,600 non-essential residents remain and have apparently decided to wait it out.
We don't want to be doing an emergency evacuation later on when or if the threat comes. So really stressing to folks, please leave right now.
Overnight, Yellowknife received some desperately needed rain, and by Saturday afternoon, the fire remained 15 kilometers outside the city. On the outskirts of the evacuation zone, thousands of people and pets are sleeping in cars, RVs, and tents, anxiously waiting for news.
We'll stay here until we hear a little bit more about what's going on in Yellowknife, and then we'll decide whether we continue south or whether we stay here and wait it out.
And those evacuees just received a bit of good news. Officials now say the fires are no longer expected to hit Yellowknife this weekend. That's thanks in part to a few millimeters of rain. But tomorrow is expected to be warm, windy, and dry. Colleen?
Jeff Semple in Enterprise, Northwest Territories. Thank you, Jeff. Coming up, where there's fire, there's smoke. How wildfires are impacting many people far beyond the fire zone. Plus,
I'm Jamie Dahl in Hay River, a community that's been evacuated for a week now. We check in to see how they're doing on the front lines. Ahead on Global National.
As wildfires hold a fierce grip on Canada's western and northern regions, all that smoke is beginning to make its way across the country. This time-lapse shows just how quickly the smoke moved into the BC interior, blanketing the entire area as the McDougall Creek wildfire rapidly spread. As winds shift, smoke from BC and the Northwest Territories is expected to make its way across the prairies, potentially heading even further east. Katherine Ludwig takes a look at the health impacts of all that smoke.
Relentless and record-breaking. Canada's forest fire season started early, with fires in BC and Alberta back in April. And with over 14 million hectares burned, it hasn't let up.
It's hard to say if there's actually was a peak in the forest fire season, more so than just a prolonged period of forest fires.
Smoke comes hand in hand with the fires. In Vancouver, thick smoke is now wafting in from fires in the interior, with waves of smoke spreading across the western provinces all the way to the east coast.
The air quality has been quite poor for many areas of Western Canada. The smoke that's generated from these wildfires being transported in the upper level winds thousands of kilometers away from their source region and affecting the air quality.
Poor air quality levels throughout the summer has created countless days of haze and high health risks.
The last few days have been poor in terms of air quality, and it's going to get worse over the next few days. And I've been seeing more patients coming into the clinic complaining of shortness of breath and cough.
As the climate changes, the intensity of this season is only expected to get worse.
So we have to prepare ourselves for this being part of the normal from here on in. Despite the fact that we're doing, some folks are doing the best we can to alleviate climate change, it is inevitable and it is occurring.
Government officials recommend N95 masks to filter out harmful particles in the worst affected areas.
That a declining planet with worse air and extreme weather events is going to have incredibly injurious effects on our healthcare system.
Experts say wildfire smoke can have dire effects on people with existing health conditions, children, and the elderly, but it ultimately affects everyone. Katherine Ludwig, Global News.
Ahead, rare storm. Southern California braces for a year's worth of rain in just the next few days. Southern California is bracing for what could be catastrophic and life-threatening flooding as Hurricane Hillary tracks north from Mexico. The rare tropical storm is expected to begin pummeling the region tonight, but officials say strong winds and heavy rainfall will be most intense on Sunday and Monday. It's triggered California's first ever tropical storm warning, extending from the state's southern border to just north of Los Angeles.
It's been 84 years since one came ashore, so it's a once-in-a-lifetime event that we're going to be experiencing.
Residents are stocking up on supplies and laying down sandbags in high-risk areas. Meteorologists are predicting parts of the region could see more than a year's worth of rain in only a few days. On the Hawaii island of Maui, the wildfire death toll has risen to 114, but there are still as many as 1,000 people still unaccounted for. Search and rescue workers with cadaver dogs continue to sift through the rubble for remains. About 60% of the historic town of Lahaina has been searched so far. The Lahaina fire was one of 4 that erupted on the island more than 10 days ago, destroying at least 2,200 structures. Next, those who've stayed behind to help those on the front lines. The devastation from wildfires in the Northwest Territories is becoming clear. The hamlet of Enterprise is almost completely burned down, and residents of Hay River have been displaced for an entire week as the fire threatens their community. Communication lines are back up after a difficult few days for those fighting the fire. And as Jamie Dahl reports, some who stayed behind are doing everything they can to bring people home.
Daybreak in the Northwest Territories, a land black, smoldering and raging with wildfire. Tens of thousands of its residents are everywhere but home. The streets of Hay River are quiet and empty 1 week now since a chaotic evacuation.
Lunch on the go.
But there is one building in town still buzzing nonstop.
I'm very honored, very honored.
Brenda is normally a cook on a cargo ship. She and other volunteers are now cooking for about 200 frontliners.
They're sacrificing their lives for this town, this community. These guys are tired, they're hungry, they're frustrated. You know, so if I can joke with them a bit, get a good meal out with our team here and fill up their bellies, it makes me feel good.
I feel like a one-armed juggler.
We found the town's mayor also cooking in this kitchen.
Hopefully the Army arrives. They're supposed to come in and help with the guys on the front line so that we can blackline this thing and get people back into the community.
But it could be a while yet. The fire is about 7 kilometers from town, and it's already taken a grim toll, wiping out most of the homes in a nearby community.
We had some rain for a couple days. We still have warmer weather coming. This fire is still close by. There's still a lot of risk, and in the forecast, you know, we're prepared for some challenging days.
It's estimated 200 of Hay River's 3,000 residents are still here. Sienna McIntyre couldn't move her brother, who has a disability.
I'm watching houses. I'm doing patrols every day. I go at 7 in the morning, go feed the dogs, all the dogs in town.
This is the second time this summer this community has been evacuated due to wildfire. And last year they were forced out because of a devastating flood. To say they are exhausted would be an understatement, but they have little choice but to roll with the punches and wait for better days. Jamie Dahl, Global News, Hay River.
And that's Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Colleen Christie. We leave you tonight with the heart-wrenching scenes of what's been unfolding in BC and the Northwest Territories these past few days, and what those who have fled are going through, scenes that are sadly becoming all too common. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Good night.